Anyway, so thank you very much for joining. So Dr. Mobius from PressX. It's PressX, right? It's not Press
Yeah.
Cross.
No, no, no.
Right, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously there's contention there, isn't there, with some people whether it's Cross or X, but I'm glad I agree with you. It's X as far as I'm
No,
concerned.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's just get right into it. Would you like to give yourself a briefing of overview, introduction of who you are and
Yeah.
the band itself?
I guess in its simplest terms, we write our own original songs about mainly about video games actually. And then at some point we kind of crossed over into being the anime function band for comic conventions, anime and video games. And that's kind of been our kind of selling point ever since for the last few years. It feels weird. I feel like I'm in a job interview.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, but no, yeah, that's kind of the bread and butter of what we do. Actually,
Yeah.
I wish there was more of an avenue for us to push our original music.
Mm.
And yeah, instead of just playing anime openings. But I guess that's kind of the gateway drug, if you will, to our own music, really.
So what initially on that then, and what initially did you decide to go for the avenue of creating your own music influenced by, or were you aiming to be that kind of band that
So
play conventions and things like that?
no, so the funny thing is, this all started. Have you played BioShock 2 by any chance?
I've only played BioShock Infinite, so
Okay. So I played BioShock 1 and then I played BioShock 2, and at the end of that game, I was so I was so inspired by that game that I put the controller down, picked up a guitar, and this riff came out. I don't have all my guitars are downstairs because we just had rehearsal. Um, Actually, I might be able to plug this. Nope, that's fine. But I played this riff that came. I just the second I put down the controller and that riff later on became what a song that's on our Spotify now called Eleanor.
yes,
And I wrote the song and I thought, well, like I feel like I should write more songs about video games.
yeah,
The thing is, as a child, I never really got to play many games. And then
okay,
when I grew up and then I had my own money, I was like, I just wanted to play all the games I never got to play as a kid.
yeah, okay,
And then and it just kind of spiraled from there. And for the longest time, and I guess for those of you who don't know and watching this, for the longest time, because I am a multi-instrumentalist, I play all the instruments, and I needed to find a band that
yeah,
would play this live with me. And all the bands were like, that's kind of lame. That's not rock and roll. Like, who wants to play songs about video games? And then I in London, I was working in this job, and I mentioned to one of my colleagues at work that I write my own songs about video games, and he was like, "Oh, do you mean like karaoke?" And I was like, "What's karaoke? Have you heard of karaoke?"
I've heard that. I think I've heard the term, but I've never
Yeah.
heard anyone talk about it. So
And so I was like, "What's karaoke?" And he says, "Well, every month in Dalston, up in kind of North London, there's this video game event, which is kind of like Weird Al and karaoke put into one.
okay,
So they would rewrite the songs the way Weird Al would, but they'd all be about video games. And I thought, this sounds like a cool place to hang out. So I went there, and over several visits, I met what would lead to be my band that plays with me now, or
okay,
several members from there. Yeah. And
oh,
then
it's interesting.
we had no place to play this live.
No.
And then I emailed a comic convention out of the blue. I just got an ad for it, and I was like, oh, an anime convention. I was like, hey, do you guys fancy having like a live band play? They're like, sure, let's do it. Like, then there was another band that plays this kind of similar circuit to us now called Remake, and they
Yeah,
also write original music about video games. They've kind of been a bit quiet as of in the last few months or so. But yeah, and then I realized this is where we needed to be, and I thought, well, we're here at an anime convention, we might as well just play an anime opening to start. And that was World Is Mine by Hatsune Miku.
okay, yeah.
Um,
No, I'm familiar with that.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's in our repertoire now. Like we sound
fantastic.
checked with that song at MCM, and that it kind of just snowballed from there. People were like, oh, you should play more anime openings, and yeah, and that's kind of what we've been doing for the last 18, 19, 20, 22, like 5 years now.
Fantastic. I did. So did you? Am I right in saying you played was it the London Anime Gaming Convention? Because I used
Yes,
to go. I used to go there quite a lot
yeah,
before COVID.
yeah,
So it's yeah. So yeah. Because I remember definitely seeing Remake there because I
yeah,
picked up a CD and I've still got it somewhere. But no, that's
yeah.
interesting. So did that having played that gig, did that lead to the MCM gig? Was that like a right? We can do this. This is what we've got like a repertoire and like
Yeah,
a
it
following from
kind of
this.
it kind of was. So what happened was that I at some point I realized I needed to kind of take matters into my own hands. So I went to LinkedIn.
Yeah. Okay.
Trade secrets. I went to LinkedIn and tried to find the organizers behind MCM, and I messaged the head of events and I said, "Hi, I play for this kind of anime video game band. She said, I'm actually on maternity leave, but could you please message this other person whose name I will not name, but we've kind of had a long-standing relationship with them now. And that's kind of how it happened. And they said, did you say anime opening band? Yes, like sign me, sign me up. And that's kind of how it happened, really.
Okay, brilliant.
Yeah.
So I noticed that I mean, because I was at MCM, I think it was, oh, where are we? In May, and I remember you guys playing in the out in the open. I mean, I don't know what hall it was in. I know every year it changes. So, but I remember it being really loud, and it was the first time I'd, because I tend to go, obviously during the pandemic years I didn't go, but I've been to MCM off and on since 2014, and I know there's been like the fringe stage and the outside part, but was that the first time they created like a stage like out in the open? Because it seemed new to me. I don't know.
I know. So the fringe stage had always been there, but they only have them during May, because in October it's too cold, so no one wants to be outside.
Okay.
This year they moved it indoors because they had some kind of noise complaints from the neighbors in the surrounding areas, and something to do with them not getting the right licensing or something. So they kind of had to unpack this whole stage, and this year we had to play everything indoors. So it wasn't as good, I think, because we didn't have the exposure, especially with like thousands of people outside. It would have been ideal for us, but no, we weren't able to play outside this time.
Well, that's interesting because because I mean looking at the footage online, it looked really good. I mean, the thing that I thought was a bit, I've been in bands myself, and what I couldn't get my head around was that I couldn't see where all the speakers and things were when you were playing. It looked like it was just like, what are they hearing? What's going on? It was just bizarre for me, and I was fascinated by that. So
yep. So we've been working on this to kind of streamline this process now, but what you saw in that video is we actually don't have any amplifiers.
Right.
So everything is run through kind of digital floor modelers, like the Line 6 Helix, that kind of tech. And then everything is run through in-ear monitors.
Okay.
And so on stage, the only thing you hear is drums. And definitely. Everything else, it just comes in through our secret in-ear monitors. That counts as in, that plays all the backing tracks. And then you guys hear it like it's a full show. Right. And on stage, it's just drums. There's no amps, no anything.
Well, that probably makes your ears don't ring as much at the end of the gig, I suppose, and that's probably better for your hearing. And that's really, I've never really because I sort of played in bands years ago, I never really used in-ear monitors. It was always like a wedge monitor. I was a singer, so I'd be like constantly getting the wedge monitor up. But the on stage volume would be, you'd have a guitarist turn up, then another guitarist turn up, and by the end of the gig it would just be too loud. So that's really interesting that we've got the technology to do that these days.
Yeah, in fact, we've actually leveled this up now. So what happens now at our shows is we actually have a kind of a splitter, and it basically duplicates the same channel. So everything doesn't plug into the mixing desk. It plugs into our splitter, and then one set goes into our own mixer that is perpetually wired in. And we've pre-built our own in-ear mixer. So I hear exactly what I want to hear, the exact balance of everything. My guitarist will hear exactly what he wants to hear. My drummer will hear exactly what he wants to hear, so on and so forth. And then a duplicate channel just comes out in like a pack of like 24 XLRs. And we hand it to the sound engineer with a little laminated sheet that says, here's what 1 is, here's what 2 is. And then they'll do their own thing, and we're already sound checked. We never have to go, can you turn me up? Can you turn my bass up? It never happens. So everything is set in stone for us, and they're free to set their own levels as they please.
Well, that's really good. I'm fascinated by that, because I mean, I'm very interested in. I've done some sound engineering courses and stuff over the years, but I've never really got to put it into practice in a live setting, and that's fascinating. I mean, it like I say, from a protecting your ears perspective, that must be good. I suppose it gives you the freedom to move around, because I noticed in that, certainly in that performance, you're moving around a lot, and you're sort of jumping on chairs and things like that.
It's all wireless.
That must make it so much better, because there's nothing worse than having a guitar cable plugged in and then like swinging your arm or something and knocking it out. That would terrify me. I'd be like so terrified. That's really cool. I like that. So on that gig as well, because just to talk on that, because that's where I technically saw you and stuff like that. So you mentioned earlier about being sort of go-to enemy gaming kind of band. Do they ask you to play specific songs, or do they let you go on with it? So
they let us get on with it. But every show we play, we'll get like an influx of people requesting the same songs.
Right.
And so when we played, I think you saw us at MCM May of last year, was it?
I think it was this year. I think it feels like it was this year. It might have been last year. They all
was
blended
it indoors,
into one
outdoors?
It was indoors.
Indoors. Oh, okay. Maybe it might have been October. So usually, yeah, so usually the MCM won't, most cons won't ask us. Sometimes the organizers say, oh, can you please play this specific song? I guess to quote an example, Animanga Pop requested Sailor Moon for his wife.
Right. Okay.
And then like for a long time, everyone wanted us to play Unravel. And that's kind of in our set list now. It's a bit of hit or miss. When I was living in my previous house, I had a real dust issue and it was really affecting my voice. I moved out now and it's fine. But Unravel, and then when that was over, we had this whole Chainsaw Man story arc where everywhere we went, people asked us to play Chainsaw Man. It's still traumatizingly difficult to play live, to be honest.
Yeah. So on that then, do you have songs that you really like playing live, that are your favorites?
Ooh,
And it not necessarily something you've written, something you like as
yeah.
a cover or something.
Oh, that's a good question. Let me just look through my own set list. What do we have in the master sheet? Um, let me see. Oh yeah, there's a medley that we play of Ken's theme from Street Fighter and
Okay, yeah.
Those Who Fight from Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, no, I've seen that. Yeah, the video of
Yeah.
that earlier. Yeah.
Let's see what else is in here. The rest of my band hate playing Last Surprise. I love singing Last Surprise. What else is here? Um, ooh, we all collectively love playing Crossing Field, the Sword Art Online opening.
Yeah.
That's a real good one. Let's see what else is on this list. The song that has usually repeatedly gone down really well is Snow Halation from Love Live. And that was another like somewhat requested song from like the kind of the strongest of weebs. And then now that we've learned it, like we can't stop playing it now because everywhere we go, like this like a crowd of people who know the dance, the choreography, the words and everything. Yeah.
That's interesting. So I'm a vocalist as well, but I can't speak any other language other than English. So I noticed there's a few songs that are presumably in Japanese and other
Yeah.
languages. So are you multilingual, or do you learn the?
So I actually I learn it as it is. So what I
Right.
tend to do, and I guess life hack for people who want to memorize songs in a different language. There's a website called looptube.io, and that's
Okay.
probably a handy way to do it for those of you who don't have access to recording software. And you can basically loop line by line and until you learn a lyric, like the first line of a verse, and then move on to the second line. And if you're trying to memorize a song in which the language isn't familiar to you and it just sounds like incomprehensible syllables, that's probably the best way to go. Just loop it section by section. But that's pretty much how I do it.
Well, that's interesting. That's what I wouldn't have thought, because I listened to it. It's like you're fluent. It's great, because that's always my worry. I wouldn't want to say something that in a different language that would offend someone. Because I know that I think the Attack on Titan opening. I mean, like Jaeger is the only part that I'd sing, because I'd probably be able to do the melody, but I wouldn't be able to sing along with the words, and it's a bit limited. So thanks for the advice as well. I might end up doing that. So got to ask you about Sonic, because you've mentioned you're a big Sonic fan, and I did notice the video of you playing City Escape, which is fantastic. One of my favorites. I did a cover myself of that, and for years and years I've loved that game. So on a general question, what's your favorite Sonic game, and what is your favorite Sonic song to play, sing, or listen
to? So I'm a bit of a Sonic 2D purist.
Okay.
Being an older gentleman myself. My favorite Sonic game. Okay, so my favorite Sonic game is probably a toss, but it's a tough call. Like nostalgia draws me back to Sonic CD and Sonic 3 and Knuckles. So those are the ones that I played growing up. My guilty pleasure Sonic game is actually Sonic R.
Yeah. Well, is that because the music? Because the music, and that's great.
Yes, it is. And so this. I mean, the thing is, the rest of my band aren't diehard Sonic fans. No. If I could play any Sonic song live, I would probably play something from the Sonic R soundtrack in the style that I played in. So if you all go to my YouTube channel, I've been slowly putting out covers of the Sonic R theme soundtrack. You're My Number One, the ending theme, is probably the song I'd love to play the most. But the song that we play live is we used to play Live and Learn live.
Right.
It's very taxing on my vocal cords.
Very much so, yeah.
City Escape. It's the easier one to play. But during COVID, I actually I stream a lot. I do a lot of video game music streams to kind of the US and Canada. There's a huge community out there, and I played I did like a whole rock album live stream, so like backing tracks, but real guitars, to the entire Sonic R soundtrack. This is about a year or two ago. I don't think we kept the pre-recordings. I still have the backing tracks. Like at some point, I'd love to do it, but I don't know if you know TJ Davis, the singer who sings the Sonic R soundtrack, and Richard Jack, the composer, like have both tweeted my covers in the past.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, or X'd my covers. I don't know.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
sounds
well,
kind of
yeah,
wrong
yeah.
now.
It's changed now, isn't it? Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, no, yeah. Still tweets. It'll still be tweet. And it's a British thing that like we still call things same thing forever, no matter what it
yeah,
changes to. It'll still be
yeah,
tweet, I
yeah,
think. But that's
yeah.
and I yeah at one point a long time ago I used to have every Sonic game.
Oh wow, okay.
Apart from I think the arcade exclusive. So I had like because on the GameCube you used to be able to play all of the Game Boy Advance games on the player,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then like all the GameCube games had them all like as unlockables and things like that, and I unlocked them
yeah,
all. So I was like that like back in like 2002 2003 I was like, yeah, I've got all the Sonic games because I'm a
yeah,
massive Sonic fan. And I love the music. I mean, even like what's brilliant about the soundtracks is that the content's really cheesy. It's really sort of child friendly stuff, but it's brilliant
yeah,
music, so well written and so well recorded. And the Crush 40 stuff is great,
yeah.
which I'm sure you'd agree with. So,
Yeah.
but
It's really well done. Actually, Johnny Gioeli liked. I covered one of his own songs from his own side project, or his old project from the '80s, and he liked one of my Instagram posts. I was like, yeah,
so on that then, so you've talked about recognition from sort of similar artists, but what do you think is the next step for the band? Just carry on with the conventions and move into maybe more international ones like Magfest and things like that?
So I'd love to play Magfest. That's probably the place where we belong the most.
Yeah.
Because I guess we write original songs about video games. The difficulty is just getting all our equipment there safely, visa approvals. Like I don't know if you watch Border Patrol, but like I've seen enough episodes to know that like 3 brown dudes and 1 white guy turning up at the U.S. airport is just asking for trouble.
So it shouldn't be that way, but it's a shame, isn't it? But yeah,
yeah,
no.
but yeah, no, that's a place we'd love to play. I don't really know what the plan. I don't really know what the plan is, because we like playing anime openings, but at the same time we want to have more people listen to our own music. And I guess part of that problem is I just don't have the budget to I guess to rewind. When you listen to a lot of music today, some of that is the artist playing the instruments and stuff, but a lot of that is just the engineer who's making everything as clear as possible.
Yeah.
A producer who's saying, okay, we should add these, and I'm just one person who's doing this all by myself, and I don't have the budget to make this as high quality as I possibly can. And I'm slowly gaining the technical know-how. So that I guess that's one of the main things that's holding us back, really. Like I like the songs, my band likes the songs. So we just doesn't sound like it doesn't have the production quality of a top 10 hit on the rock charts. I think that's one of the main things that's holding us back.
For interest, which digital audio workstation do you use? What's your
Studio One?
Studio One. Yeah, I'm playing around with FL Studio at the moment because I'm looking at like doing some composing stuff, which I guess leads me into a question. So you mentioned about you're talking about the style of singing about video games. You're talking about the stories and things like that. Is potentially going into writing for video games and composing for that an avenue you're interested in as well?
Yes, but the way video game music is created now is slightly different, and I'll give you an example. So if you think about kind of indie games on the whole, simple indie games, there's a song per level, and that's kind of how it is. A lot of it is kind of digital electronic, but when you think about more sophisticated music, have you ever played Shadow of the Colossus?
I have, yes.
So you notice that the music is quiet, and as you approach a boss, it slowly blends in, and then as you get to the next level, it doesn't cut abruptly. And what happens is you actually have multiple layers of music that's playing in tune, and you're kind of floating from one to the other. And that's the kind of thing that I just don't know how to do. If someone said during COVID, someone actually asked me to write an anime opening for them for what would have been the first UK anime.
Okay.
But I guess because of COVID, the whole production kind of died down, and we never picked that project up again. But that is something I'd love to do, because I don't have to write in multiple layers. They say, here are the things I want you to sing about. Go make me a song.
Okay, yeah, well, it's
Yeah.
interesting because I mean, you've certainly got more knowledge of anime openings. I mean, I'm an anime fan, but I've noticed sort of that from what I understand anyway, that like a lot of their openings, there's lots of different styles of music, and it's kind of like the place for bands in Japan to be, like get an
Yeah.
anime opening. So
Yeah.
and it's really diverse music. I mean, some of the, I don't know if you're familiar with an anime called Gantz. There's
No, I
like
haven't heard of it.
yeah, it's early two probably late 2000s 2007 2008 kind of time, but like the openings like they're a band called, I think it's RIP Slime, and they're like a Japanese like rap rock band, and
Okay.
it's and then of course you got stuff that came out at the same time. I think the ending theme for that series is like a very sort of slow, nice sort of like
It
ballad,
always
and
is,
it's just
isn't it?
completely different contrast. It's just incredible. There's so much
Yeah.
music there. I mean, I can't ever pronounce things, but there's the opening to, is it the Tomb, or like, it's like boom but with a T in the middle, like that. That's a really good one as well. But they're
No, I gotta
different.
check this out.
Yeah, they've completely BTOOOM. I like really obscure stuff that like came out for like I've
Oh,
got like
okay.
one DVD of like one series and stuff like that. But that's fascinating.
Okay.
So on that front, then, asking the same question from before, what are your uh are you a big anime fan, and are you interested in that stuff? And what are your favorite anime openings?
So um we in the among the four of us, our bandmates, we all have our own kind of subdivision of weeb. And
The
Nelson, our bass player, is the true
true one.
anime weeb. I'm more of the Sonic weeb. Jamie, our drummer, is the League of Legends
Oh,
weeb,
okay.
and Jan, our co-lead guitarist, is the Eve Online weeb. So I didn't watch that much anime growing up. I mean, we had the normal like Doraemon, Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon.
Yeah.
And then as we got a little older, we had I can't remember what else I watched as a kid, but I didn't pick this back up again until much later in life when everyone I knew was talking about Attack on Titan. And I thought,
Yeah.
oh, let me just see what this is about then. And then from there, I was like, yeah, I really need to go back into watching anime. It's a time constraint thing for me because when I'm off work, and the minute I get off work, I'm going back to creating music, and I
Yeah.
just finding time to finish Elden Ring, watch an anime, and
Yeah.
compose at the same time.
I think the thing
Yeah,
is, if you're, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, isn't it? Because if you're like into animation and gaming, like you couldn't pick one, like,
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
especially
yeah,
nowadays when I'm playing Final Fantasy 16 at the moment, which has recently come out, and it's absolutely all of my time has just been
yeah,
spent on that because it's just
yeah,
incredible. But like, and I've got all these DVDs. I've got My Hero Academia here, the first series I've not started watching yet, and I want to get to it, but I can't really quite get there. So
yeah. No, I know what you mean. Like it's an adulthood thing, isn't it?
it is. It's annoying because we get all the money to
Yeah,
afford this stuff now, but none of the time to do it.
yeah,
Whereas when we were
yeah,
kids, certainly when I was a kid, it was like I had none of the money to afford it and like
yeah,
plenty of time, which is why I
yeah,
think like what tends to happen, certainly me, I tend to sink a lot of time into like one or two games, so like
yeah,
hundreds of hours into one thing, which is probably why the games were made like that. But
yeah,
then
yeah.
like the audience is just completely different, isn't it? But it's crazy.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
So
yeah. Like our one of our crew members, Katie, who does all the still camera stuff in our videos. I think she's like something like a thousand hours into Red Dead Redemption 2, or something crazy. Yeah, yeah,
that is
yeah.
insane. Well, what's your biggest sink into a game then? I'm intrigued.
Uh, it's probably dark. So I haven't been able to play any game that isn't Dark Souls for years now. Like I'm so the challenge of making
Yeah,
of playing impossible to tell games and then beating it, like the euphoria from beating is
yeah,
like it's just completely unbeatable. And so now I'm like desensitized to anything else. Like I can only play Dark Souls games. I started playing Elden Ring a couple of months ago, and like the minute I booted the game, I thought, okay, I'm gonna play this whole game with no shield, no armor, no summons, or nothing. I'm just gonna go naked katana. And I've made it to the end now. I'm trying to beat Millennia. I just can't do it without, or like no, completely naked with the katana.
yeah,
It's just impossible
yeah.
to do.
But it's one of those things where like you probably like you can't bring yourself not to do it because you've done the entire game. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
friend of mine, we did the first Devil May Cry game. It's not obviously
yeah.
not quite as hard a game, but we did it with the original sword, with the Force Edge sword, and that
It's
took
a hard
us.
game.
Like
Yeah,
with all the upgrades and like all the things you can breeze it, but with the original sword, it was crazy. It gets to one boss and that's it. You were just stuck, and because you can't go back and get other items, it was just a
Oh
we
yeah, yeah,
spent
yeah,
hours on one boss just getting it through. And eventually when we got it, it was just like you say, a euphoria. It's just, oh my God, I can't
yeah,
believe we
yeah,
did that. You know, it's crazy.
yeah,
It's a
yeah.
shame. The only thing I think I'm upset about with that is I never recorded it to put it on as a video, because the challenge runs are quite popular. So
Did you play this like in recent times or like when it came out?
this was like I think this was a pre-pandemic time. So,
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah,
it seems recent, but it's probably a long time ago now.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because
feels very
I played
recently.
I played DMC two before one. I
Oh
played
right,
DMC two when it came out, like
right, yeah.
when I was in my teens. But then I tried one a few years ago, and I thought one is so much harder than two. My
A
God.
lot harder than
Yeah,
two, and it's really aged well as well. We've got like, between us, we've got it on every console you can get it, because it's every PlayStation comes out, they release, and then they release on
yeah,
Xbox and
yeah,
then PC. So we've got like all the versions of it because we're big
yeah,
fans.
yeah,
But it's yeah, it holds up. I mean, obviously it's dated now in terms of its graphics, but like I mean, it's a massively influential game, and
yeah,
it's like it's still, you can still play it and enjoy it without sort of thinking this is a bit old and a bit crummy. It's still pretty good. So
yeah, 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 yeah,
okay, so
yeah.
conscious we're towards the end of time. Last question would be: would you like to plug anything specifically for yourself?
Yeah, I guess so. Oh, question for you then before I pick the right plug. Where is your core audience like kind of roughly located?
Well, I wouldn't know, but
Okay.
anywhere, any people that like
Um,
music, hopefully.
in which case, I have I've been working on a whole album based on Avatar: The Last Airbender. The first two singles are out, Agni Kai and The Boy in the Ice. So I've just released a Japanese version of Boy in the Ice, which I translated through a friend of mine. And that's out on our Spotify. I think it was out about maybe about a month ago, slightly
Okay.
less. Yeah. So yeah, go check that out. That's the Japanese version of Boy in the Ice. There's a whole album coming out. I'm still working on the third, which is meant to be the final song from this album. It's kind of a 5-part EP, really. If anyone is watching this in or around London, we're playing a city pop specific night on the 26th of August. If you guys don't know what city pop is, it's like that genre of music that was 80s Japan, like Plastic Love. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we're playing like a city pop specific night at the end of August. It'll be a cool party. Sold out last year actually. So yeah, if you're watching this before, book tickets.
Fantastic. Cool. And are
Yeah.
you going to make an appearance at MCM later in the year, or?
Yeah, so we'll be at both hopefully we'll be at both October London and December Birmingham. First time out of town, I guess. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, I'll say hello when I go, because I usually go to MCM. So
Ah, there we go. Yeah.
thank you very much for your time. Take care. Thank you.
All right. And you.